What's up, guys? Rob from Legit Brownies Gaming here, bringing you a different kind of video. This is kind of a series that I was thinking about doing for the channel for the upcoming month. As you can see, I'm recording this on 11/30, so it is not quite December, but I want to do a series, something that I'm going to be calling Tiercember. I'm going to be doing a tier list a week, so that'll be 4 tier lists over the course of the month. And so I decided, what better way to start other than with a Fate servant tier list. This is obviously not every single servant. These are the ones that I've either watched or played if they were in Extella Link enough to kind of have formed an opinion on. I haven't watched everything Fate has ever put out because there's like a billion things. And so I'll kind of explain where I know the servant best from. And what's playing in the background is a Fate medley done on piano by Halicon Music here on YouTube. I will put that link in the description. Just absolutely incredible talent on the piano. It's awesome. So yeah, that's what you're hearing in the background. And I decided to start with Fate Servants because Fate's my favorite show. It's my favorite anime. I love this series to death. And I recently just watched Fate Apocrypha for a second time, and I'm playing through Fate Extella Link at the moment. So why not? So yeah, it's not going to have, like I said, every servant. It's just the ones that I kind of know well enough to have an opinion on. So, of course, we have to start with Ortoria, Pendragon, Saber. I don't think much more needs to be said. I know her best from everything. She's in everything Fate does ever. Fate Zero, Fate Stay Night. She's in both Extella games. Just a really good character. And she kind of like hits all my like niche interest type things. Because I love medieval knights. I don't know why. I really couldn't tell you why, but I think that aesthetic is so cool. So, she's a pretty woman. She's a medieval knight. She's badass, and I don't think much more needs to be said about that. Oh, and she loves to eat, and I love food too. I love food. I'm actually heating up my dinner right about now. So, what more could you ask for in a character, right? Up next, we have Atalanta Archer from Fate Apocrypha. And this isn't a power tier list, by the way. This isn't like how strong they are or anything. This is just kind of like how much I like them, really. So this is like purely personal opinion. I think Atalanta is a pretty interesting character in Apocrypha. Like, very pragmatic, spoilers. There's going to be spoilers for some Fate stuff in this video, by the way. She makes the decision to switch teams because she thinks it gives her the best chance to win. And her wish is a pretty noble one, wanting to save children. So no children has to be unloved ever again. It's a pretty noble wish. And I really like her aesthetics. Her color palette is really, really cool. I like the greens and blues that she has going on. The only downside to her is that, she kind of goes a little crazy in the show. But overall, I think Atalanta is a pretty cool character in the show. And overall, we have Avicabron, I don't know, Avisabron, how do you say his name? But I'm going to put him in B as well. He doesn't really get a lot of time to shine in the show, and he kind of dies in a pretty pathetic way. But I think the idea of his character is really, really cool. Using golems to fight in a Holy Grail War is a really interesting and unique way to fight. And I just think that idea is pretty cool. There's not much else. He's kind of almost like a background character a lot of the time, but his idea I think is cool enough that I think he deserves a little bit of love. We have Charlemagne from Fate Extella Link. I'm gonna put him in A. I think he's a pretty cool character in the game because of the idea of him being the opposite shadow of Rex Magnus Carl, and him representing young Charlemagne as a paladin, as opposed to Rex Magnus Charlemagne as a king. I think that's a really cool dichotomy. And I really like playing with him in Extella Link. His fighting style is pretty cool. So I'm going to put him in A. Next, you have Kukulhane Lancer, and I think it's really funny that, of course, he's cut off in this picture, which is just perfect for his character because he always just dies in the most unfortunate ways. He's got to go in S. He's a true bro, both in Fate Stay Night and in Carnival Phantasm during the drag race when he just slams into a wall and explodes. A really, really cool character in a sense that, like, he has a very interesting moment of character development where, you know, of course, he comes to the aid of Shiro and Rin after Archer basically abandons them. And he's a true homie. He's a true homie of a character. Plus, his Noble Phantasm is pretty cool. Like, the reverse effect with Gay Bulg is pretty interesting. Emiya Archer, we're going to stick him in A. He's a very interesting character in the sense that, like, he's an archer that mostly fights with his swords more so than his bows. So he gets points for that, and the whole, like, materializing the swords is really cool. The only thing I don't like about his character is his whole, like, plot thing where, you know, again, spoilers, you know, he's basically trying to kill Shiro so that Shiro doesn't become him, because he's basically jaded at all of the things he's had to do for people. It's really strange, I think, because it doesn't make a ton of sense if you really think about it. It kind of does, because he's like, oh, this is torture, this is hell, I don't want Emiya to grow up to do this. But since he's himself, he would have to have known that was basically never going to happen and never going to work. And it's kind of weird that he'd stoop to do some of the things that he did just in the name of killing Shiro. So that's, like, the only thing that's, I think, a bit weird, is that he goes a bit, like, almost like evil for the sense of killing himself, even though he knows himself as being a champion of justice. It's a little strange, but overall, his aesthetics are pretty cool. He's a pretty neat character, so we'll stick him in A. Hassan of the 100 Faces, I think, is a pretty interesting character idea. Obviously from Fate Zero and Stay Night. His Noble Phantasm is pretty dope, but I also think it's one of the, like, issues in general with the series, I think, is that assassins don't really get as much love as maybe they should. They're always kind of like the evil character, right? Which makes sense, because, like, assassins, generally speaking, in real life are not the good guys. But I mean, I don't know. I think he's, like, underdeveloped in a sense, but he does have some pretty cool aesthetics. So I'm kind of talking myself into bumping him up a little bit. Heracles Berserker, definite A tier character. His Noble Phantasm essentially making him never die is pretty sweet, and he kind of avoids the trap that a lot of berserkers fall into of just being, like, mindless killing machines, which is, again, another issue that the series kind of has, is, like, berserkers are almost always just, like, completely mindless. They don't really speak. They're just out there to kill things. But he actually develops, like, a personality in a sense, you know, with Ilya, and he shows that, like, he's willing to fight to the death to protect her. So he's a pretty cool character. His aesthetics are cool. His character development is cool. We're going to put him in A. Karna from Apocrypha and also the Extella games, I'm going to put him at C. He's a very practical character. Like, he does that whole, you know, betrayal thing in Apocrypha for the sake of being like, these guys are going to win. I'm not huge into the aesthetics that he's bringing to the table. His color palette is pretty cool, but I think he's not a bad servant, but I think maybe underdeveloped in a sense, because we don't really get to see him that much. Like, obviously he has that whole thing with Zhig where he's like, I'm just gonna kill this guy, but you know, we're gonna put him in C. Ishtar, I mean, it's Rin as a servant. What else could you possibly ask for? The best girl as a servant, who's also just really funny. Like, Ishtar throughout Fate Grand Order Babylonia is just a really funny character. She brings a lot of comedy to the table, and she just makes the show, like, a lot better in my opinion. So we're gonna put her in S. I actually am a big fan of Frankenstein Berserker from Apocrypha, because again, she does have like a little bit of that character development arc with her master, you know, where she gives him the flower and all that, and the whole blasted tree moment later on in the show when it is basically revealed that like she was with Zig the whole time. It's really, really cool. Plus her aesthetics are just dope as hell. She's wielding a giant hammer wearing a wedding dress. I mean, come on. Imagine like getting your shit rocked by this massive warhammer by this cute girl in a wedding dress. I mean, that's just, you can't beat that. So pretty cool character, pretty cool aesthetics. We're gonna put her at A. Gawain, I have not watched Fate Extra yet, so this is all just based on my opinion of him from the Extella games. And he's pretty cool. Like, he's bringing some things to the table for sure. I don't like playing him very much in the Extella games because he's kind of slow. But he's a knight, so he gets a little bit of points, but not that many points. Assassin, the not true assassin from Fate, Stay Night, as it is, Sasaki Kojiro here. I'm going to put him at C because he's, again, just kind of underdeveloped. You don't really see a lot of him in this show, but the moments you do see are kind of cool. Like his, was it the four strike technique he has? That's pretty dope. That's a pretty dope technique, I have to say. I'll give it to him. The fact that he's tied to Ryodu Temple is really kind of funny, especially because they play on that a little bit in Carnival Phantasm. But I'm going to put him down here at C because, again, kind of like Karna, he's not bad. He's just kind of underdeveloped a lot. Modred Saber, we're going to put her up here at A. Obviously one of the main characters from Fate Apocrypha. She fills that tomboy role. And I kind of just like how just like blunt and to the point she is throughout the show, where she's just really like, no nonsense, no BS. I'm here to win, and that's just kind of it. Her armor's dope. Her sword is dope. I like how she's just to the point, straight up, no BS kind of attitude. So she has cool aesthetics and a cool character. So we're going to put her up here at A. We have Medea Caster from Fate Stay Night. I actually like her aesthetics a lot. She's got some really cool like looks going on. This isn't the best picture, but plus her like the warp whole kind of like magic attacks that she does is pretty dope throughout the show. Yeah, I mean, she doesn't get as much love maybe as she should from fans, but I think she's pretty cool. Iskandar Ryder, I mean, he's a homie. He's one of the true homies from Fate Zero. I mean, you can't deny that when you talk about homies, like this man, he's in it for the gang. He's in it for the gang, for sure. So we'll put him up here. He's just like a fun character. Like whenever he's on screen, it's just fun to hear him talk and watch him in the show. He's just a very fun character. Nero Claudius, I have not watched Fate Extra yet, but just from playing the Fate Extella games, she's got to go up here in S tier. She's just really funny in the games. Like her dialogue is really, really funny. Especially when she goes back and forth with Elizabeth Bathory in the first Extella. Plus her fighting style in the game is really, really dope. And her aesthetics are cool. I mean, she's, you know, a Roman emperor ruling Rome in Seraph, and her Noble Phantasm with the roses and her golden theater. It's just dope. So she gets bonus points for being a character that not only is cool, but I also enjoy playing in Extella because she has a nice fighting style. Jeanne d'Arc, of course, is also going to be going up here in S tier. She's just a really interesting character in Apocrypha. And, I mean, she fights with a flag. Like a giant flagpole and flagstaff. Like, that's so cool. Again, I know I'm biased because of the knight aesthetic and that whole thing, but uh, you know, fighting with a flagstaff is dope. Plus, on top of like the character development that she goes through with Jig from beginning to end is really dope. I don't really know what else to say other than I think she's just a really cool character in the show. Plus, I mean, if you get beat up by a flagstaff while you're wielding like a sword, you kind of just deserve it. Elizabeth Bathory is a very funny character in the Extella games. I think she's got a really interesting and unique like aesthetic with the whole idol thing. It's pretty cool. You know, because most of these, it's like, I'm a knight, or I'm, you know, a conqueror. I'm Frankenstein's monster, where she's like, I'm just like a pop idol. So, very interesting aesthetics with her. Plus, she's just really funny. She got some really funny dialogue throughout the game. So, Medusa Rider, she gets boosted hardcore by Heaven's Feel. Because in Fate Zero, or Stay Night, she gets killed off as like part of the plot. But Heaven's Feel Medusa is badass. She is awesome. And that fight she has with Saber Alter is one of the best fights in all of Fate. So, super dope fight in Heaven's Feel. Honestly, as like Stay Night character and an Extella character, she'd probably be down here or like maybe even here. But Heaven's Feel brings her into the limelight as she deserves. Semiramis from Apocrypha. We're going to put her in B. She's got a really dope Noble Phantasm. I mean, building the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Like, what the fuck? That's so cool. Just super cool. Noble Phantasm. And I think it's like a really interesting bit of character development throughout the show, in that like she is kind of evil, but also to a certain extent she's doing it because she really, really cares. You know, like she just wants to win with Amaka Sashiro. And so she's doing it basically for the love of him. You know, she's not just out and out evil. And I think that really shows in that last scene where he's laying on her lap and she's like, you're dying, bro. Like, it's over for you. So, yeah, she's not just like, oh, I'm evil because I'm evil type deal. So I like her aesthetics. I think she's got a really cool Noble Phantasm, and I think she's an interesting take on the whole, like, I'm evil kind of, sort of, but mostly because I just want to do right for my master type thing. So kind of interesting. Spartacus, I think is kind of like the epitome of the Berserker problem, in that like he's just completely mindless and just goes off on his own, and it's like, yup, time to kill people, and then just like dies. So no real development, no real like limelight. He doesn't really get to shine at any point. So it's not really even his fault, but yeah, I'm also just not a huge fan of his aesthetic. Just this gigantoid human being that's just a brainless, you know, battering ram, essentially. So, yeah, that's it for Heracles. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that, guys. I had to go grab my food that had finished cooking, but I'm going to let it cool down, and we're going to finish this tier list real quick. On to Jack the Ripper Assassin. Yeah, we're going to put her down here. I mean, I'll put her up here. It's a cool idea, and actually the way she does the combat at the end, when she's fighting like Atalanta and Chiron and all them, is pretty dope. Like the whole the fog that she brings in is pretty interesting. I don't know. It's the whole little girl thing is just kind of weird. Like, I know that the point that they're trying to make here is like you don't really know who Jack the Ripper was. Like we don't know who he was in real life, so they can really take on the form of like any appearance, and technically it could be Jack the Ripper. Just kind of weird. The whole like thing with eating hearts and all this stuff that was going on in the show is just kind of strange. Yeah. Lancelot Berserker has the same problem that Heracles has, just like really kind of mindless throughout the show. Just kind of there to be a battering ram of meat, more or less. So not a bad character, but just like, why would I want to watch a show about these two when I could watch like him, you know, or Frankenstein actually have character development. Chiron's pretty cool. I'm gonna put him here. Of course, he gets plenty of screen time throughout Fate Apocrypha, and his whole thing with Achilles, you know, master and teacher aesthetic is pretty cool. Not anything like overly special about him, but just in general kind of a cool character. Shakespeare I'm gonna have to put down here. I think Shakespeare's an interesting character in a sense, but also falls flat in a lot of other ways. First of all, he's really annoying when he's on screen. I know that he's like grandiose because he's a writer and an artist and all this, but he kind of just annoyed me a lot of the time he was on screen, more or less. And I really kind of failed to see how he's supposed to be really useful in a one-on-one, because he doesn't really seem to have the will or the methods to kill somebody. Like, because he makes Frankenstein kind of go crazy, and he makes Jean lose her mind a little bit, you know, showing Frankenstein her being rejected, or Frankenstein. She's Frankenstein's monster, but we're just going to call it Frankenstein for the sake of it. And showing Jean, you know, Gig being killed and all that. So it's like an interesting way to attack your opponents, is like showing them memories and stuff like that, or false memories. But then he doesn't actually go like finish up on any of that and kill either one of them. I guess he's supposed to just like cripple them so that one of your teammates can kill them. But in a normal Holy Grail war where you don't have teammates, I guess the master would be the one to try to kill the servant. So I could see how he could be powerful, but certain characters would kind of, that wouldn't really work on, I don't think. Like, I don't think his abilities would really work on Artoria, for example, just because Artoria has already accepted all of like the death and the blood that's on her hands, and kind of like with Jean, but you know, obviously he used Gig against Jean. I guess he could use Shiro against Saber, but if this was Fate Zero Saber, well, is he gonna try to use like Kiritsugu against her? I don't know. I think it's an interesting idea, but like he falls flat in the show a lot. Vlad, we're gonna put down here. Lancer, kind of interesting, you know, Vlad the Impaler, but the fact that like his powers seem so closely tied to being in Romania, it's like, is he that good outside of Romania? Because they even say in the show like, oh, we're not in Romania, like his powers aren't being very useful. So interesting aesthetics, but yeah, he's kind of just one of those like evil villains that's just evil to be evil. Gig, we're gonna count Gig as both the servant and then when the homunculus becomes Gig. Pretty interesting. Obviously we don't get to spend that much time with the servant itself, so we don't really know much about him. But as the homunculus, you know, he's pretty strong. He's got some decent aesthetics, but nothing like crazy that like overly wows me, I don't think. Gilgamesh, we're gonna put up here just because I think he's like a pretty well written villain most of the time. He is somewhat of an evil just to be evil type villain, but I think it's really interesting that they wrote him into, you know, Fate Stay Night, where he has like a hard counter in Shiro. And it shows throughout the show that like his main weakness is his ego. Like when he's fighting Shiro and he hesitates to pull out, I don't ever know how to say it, his sword Aya. You know, that's his crippling weakness, is his arrogance. Plus, like, he's kind of a cool character, and I know he's not like a servant in Grand Order, but he's kind of a cool character there. So as far as villains go, I think he's pretty dope. Yeah, that's about it. Tamamo no Mai, of course, she's also going to be going up. Whoa. Weird. She's going to be going up in S as well. She's a pretty cool character throughout the Extella games. I love her aesthetic, like the purple and pink hair, or the purple clothes with the pink hair, and you know, the fox ears and all that. Just a really, really dope aesthetic character. Plus, she's like, you know, super dedicated to her husband throughout the games, and you know, what more could you ask from a character other than to be as dedicated as she is? So, Achilles, pretty cool character in Apocrypha. Goes through his own like bout of character development, but doesn't change that much throughout the show. So I'm just gonna put him here next to his sensei, as it is. I'm sure you all saw this coming. I mean, it's Astolfo. Like, everybody loves this character, and I think the biggest thing about Astolfo that's, you know, first of all, of course, he has the whole knight aesthetic going on, which I love. He has Hippogriff, which is dope, you know, a really dope mount. But I think the other thing that's awesome about Astolfo throughout both Apocrypha and the Extella games is just, he's just one of those characters, like, whenever he's on screen, he just makes the show better. He's just funny, you know, not too serious, but also kind of one of those characters, which is an archetype that I kind of like, where it's like, it's a goofy, silly character, but when he locks in, it's like, oh shit. Like, you know, he brings some serious firepower to the table when he locks the fuck in. So I don't think this surprises anybody, but yeah, Astolfo, funny, makes the show better, also brings some dope aesthetics to the table. So he gets to go up there. And Mash, we're gonna put her here. Pretty interesting servant. I think it's dope that she's a shielder, which, you know, in the Fate Go games and in the Grand Order show, kind of introduce like a new archetype. Pretty dope. I mean, fighting with a shield is sweet. Maybe not the most practical thing on the planet, but you know, I like her character development in that, you know, she starts out kind of just being like, why am I even a servant in the first place? Then becoming, you know, this like super sick character who's really good at fights and has some really dope fight sequences throughout Grand Order, both the OVA and in Babylonia. Plus, like, you know, again, one of those characters that, you know, not really like, you don't have to like question ever where her loyalties lie type thing. So overall, yeah, pretty happy with this list. I think it's pretty reflective of my opinions of a lot of things. Again, these characters aren't necessarily bad in a sense. I just think outside of like Shakespeare, who gets a pretty good bit of development, I think they just kind of underdeveloped. But yeah, so that's my opinions. Like I said, going to be doing a couple more tier lists throughout December. Don't really know what they're going to be on. Maybe more anime stuff, maybe hockey, maybe something else. I'm not really sure. I have to figure that out myself. But yeah, if you guys have any suggestions, of course, you can leave that in the comment section down below. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys again next time.